To Reese Calder, he said, raising his glass. I smiled, until he kept talking. Her dedication set the foundation, Silas continued, tone warm, eyes colder than the skyline behind him. But Aegis Core belongs to Titan Tech now, and to all of us who made it possible. 12 investors raised their flutes. A photographer caught the moment. I stood 3 feet from the center of the applause, smiling, silent. My name wasn't on the investor packets. Not once. The printed welcome kits read, Aegis Core, the future of autonomous defense founder, Silas Rourke, lead architecture team, redacted. My hand brushed the edge of a packet, its cover heavy, matte black, embossed in silver. I flipped to the back. Legal statements, patents pending, all filed under Titan Tech, all signed by him. Silas moved with precision, a man who had practiced this reveal 1,000 times in the mirror. Let's toast to the future, he said, his voice effortlessly rehearsed. Every champagne glass clinked, except mine. The lights from the city bled into the rooftop like melted gold. The air smelled of lilac, printer ink, and money. Jenna Knox, his assistant, hovered near the AV station. She caught my eye for a second, looked away. I didn't blink. The silence did the rest. The USB in my clutch felt warmer than it should have been. Small, black, nondescript. But inside it lived the line of code no one but me knew. Aegis Core's spine. The part that decided who to listen to and who to flag. I hadn't planned to use it. I'd hoped I wouldn't need to. But then Silas locked eyes with me across the room, smiling, polished, powerful. He lifted his glass in my direction and gave the subtlest of nods. Gracious, dismissive. The same nod you'd give a florist after the bouquet arrived on time. I exhaled slowly, like releasing a 1.5 years in a single breath. I thought about the nights I slept on the office floor. Cold tea, stale air, false promise. Thought about the internal breach alert that pinged at 2:41 a.m. 6 months ago. Silas accessing my dev logs. I never told him what it triggered. I reached for my glass, lifted it like everyone else, and tilted it slightly in his direction. A single, silent toast. Then I set the champagne down, untouched, and pulled the USB from my bag. Walked to the tray holding the untouched flutes. Set it down, right between the 2 tallest glasses, right where the cameras could see it. No drama, no noise, just a small black shape against white linen and gold stemware. Someone behind me murmured. The lights flickered, just once. Jenna glanced at the tray, froze. Silas didn't notice. He was already mid-pitch. Aegis Core this, quantum learning that. He thought the system was his. I didn't drink. I didn't speak. I just picked up the USB and waited. You're walking away from Microsoft? For this? That was my mother. 3 weeks before I signed the NDA. She meant it out of love. I meant it out of necessity. I needed air, space, control. Titan Tech was small, loud, fast-moving. But they promised freedom, funding, and one unspoken gift. They weren't watching yet. The lab they gave me wasn't even a real lab. Just a converted basement corner, concrete floor, 2 glass walls, blackout film barely clinging to the windows. Perfect. I named the first folder Sentinel-1, changed it to Echelon. Then finally, Aegis Core. Not a name, but a function. Not a product, but a perimeter. It wasn't built to defend against what we knew. It was built to detect what we hadn't seen yet. I didn't sleep much that year. Sticky notes formed constellations on the glass. Lines of code bled into printed schematics, which bled into coffee stains and dry eyes. No weekends, no social life, just patterns and noise. Silas Rourke started stopping by after month 4. No warning, just a knock, then his voice, casual, smooth. Making progress, Reese? You're the best investment we've made all quarter. Need anything? Bigger screen? More interns? I always said no, because I didn't want help, because I knew help came with hands, and hands came with signatures. He started calling it the Shield. I never used that name. He'd stand behind the glass, smiling. Never walked in. Just stood there, sipping something expensive, studying my walls like a gallery. There's a photo in one of the early investor decks. Me, asleep in a chair, code glowing behind me. Silas captioned it. Dedication. He never asked to take it, just took it, like he would with everything else. I ran into Jenna Knox once at 2 a.m. when I came back to restart the anomaly engine. She looked startled, holding a thumb drive, said she was just backing up display slides. I nodded, smiled, logged her access. The first internal alert triggered 2 weeks later. Unauthorized file copy. Folder. Auth framework v2.3. Timestamp 2:41 a.m. User. Rourke S. That was the moment Aegis Core began learning, not just how to protect a system, but how to recognize who from. I didn't report it. I didn't confront him. Instead, I rewrote the behavioral tree, gave it the ability to trace, to remember, to adapt. People think betrayal is a moment. It's not. It's a series of small permissions, stacked like glass until it shatters. Silas kept visiting, kept smiling, kept watching. He never asked how it worked, only how fast I could finish it. Before we moved forward with the demo, that's how Silas began. No greeting, no congratulations. Just that sentence, followed by a slide of paper across the glass table. The conference room was sterile. No windows, too much white, too much silence. Monica Vale sat at the end of the table, hands folded, face unreadable. The folder in front of me was thick, crisp pages, fresh ink, still warm from the printer. Silas gave a tight smile, the kind he saved for cameras and closings. Monica will walk you through the language. She didn't walk. She read. Section 14.3 of your agreement states all intellectual property developed on Titan Tech premises using company resources is property of Titan Tech. I didn't blink. I didn't nod. I just waited. Regardless of prior ideation, Aegis Core's functional framework, architecture, and learning systems were developed here, she continued, tone flat. This grants the company full ownership of the product. Silas leaned forward, which is why you're being compensated very generously. He tapped the corner of the folder. 300,000, lump sum, no vesting. That's more than fair for 18 months of brilliance. There was that pause again, that deliberate slice of silence between compliment and execution. I opened the folder. My name was printed on the first page. Nowhere else. Just once, at the top. Reese Calder, termination and severance agreement. Not architect, not co-creator, not even employee, just a name. He placed a silver pen beside the folder. It reflected the overhead light like a scalpel. Monica slid a smaller envelope forward. Exit checklist, security badge, access tokens, cloud credentials, all included. I reached for the pen, held it, balanced it between my fingers like a blade. You've built something incredible, Reese, Silas said, voice smooth. But it belongs to all of us now. I smiled. Or maybe I didn't. Even I couldn't tell anymore. Your work is in good hands, he added, leaning back like it was done. It wasn't. I set the pen down, didn't sign, didn't speak. Just closed the folder, pushed it gently back toward him, then stood. Monica nodded to security. 2 men in suits, polite but firm, waited by the door. I walked with them. No protest, no fight. Badge turned in at the elevator. When the doors slid shut, my ID deactivated with a soft beep, a sound I'd built into Aegis Core's access protocols. one that now echoed in my ears. Outside, I stepped into cold sunlight. The box in my hands held photos, sticky notes, half a bag of stale granola. That's all they thought I left with. Silas's silver pen never wrote a single thing that mattered, but it marked something. A line, a trigger, an authentication event. He thought he fired me. What he did was authorize my system to protect itself. The breach came at 2:41 a.m. Not from Russia, not from China, from down the hall. User, Rourke. S action, copied folder, auth framework, phase 2.3 flag, unauthorized access. It was subtle. One folder, 4 files. Just enough to look accidental. Just enough to be deliberate. The alert lit up my private terminal like a pulse. I didn't react, didn't report, didn't scream into a void that wouldn't echo back. Instead, I opened a new branch of code, labeled it failsafe, red folder, passworded, offline. Inside it, I embedded a concept Silas didn't understand: ethical intelligence. Not just an AI that defends, but one that decides what deserves defending. I trained it on breach logs, NDA violations, and corporate malfeasance, real cases, public data, internal audits, patterns. I created an algorithm not just to detect threats, but to recognize betrayal. And I made sure it could tell the difference between a malfunction and a lie. Weeks passed. He accessed the drive twice more. Always late, always careful. Every time, he just watched, logged, learned. I added a clause to the core logic: not company authenticated, creator authenticated, a quiet filter, invisible in the code base unless you knew where to look. It asked one question constantly: is the source trusted? If not, it limited access. If repeated, it flagged. If exploited, it reported. I wrote the protocol as if I were writing a will. Precise, cold, undeniable. Silas never asked why the system paused more during his tests. Never wondered why anomaly logs had his IP highlighted in orange. Never questioned why some builds rejected his credentials on the first try. He just assumed I was slow, that I was burning out. That brilliance was bleeding out of me, but I wasn't fading. I was fortifying. I backed up the failsafe folder on a secure flash drive, kept it taped behind the base plate of my office monitor. Jenna dusted that monitor every week. She never noticed. Pattern recognition works both ways. It catches threats, and it remembers who ignored them. My badge still worked back then. I stayed quiet, stayed in, watched the system learn the difference between human error and human intention. Silas once told a reporter, Aegis Core is built to protect against the unpredictable. He was wrong. It was built to protect against him. If he wanted to steal a weapon, he should have made sure it didn't know its maker. Did you touch the printer? Jenna's voice cracked across the Slack channel like a nervous tick. I didn't reply, didn't move. I just watched the red light flicker from the hallway. It was late. Titan Tech's West Wing sat in silence, except for the quiet whir of the laser printer, spitting out one page every 7 seconds, each one stamped with the same line: authority breach detected. User, Rourke. Not an error, not a bug, not yet loud enough to be noticed, but loud enough to whisper. Inside the demo room, the screen glowed white. Silas stood center stage, rehearsing for tomorrow's investor showcase. 3 simulated threats, 3 expected responses, a show of precision, power, control. I leaned against the glass wall outside, arms crossed, saying nothing. He'd asked me to sit this one out. Said my presence might confuse the branding. Said it with that same managerial smile I'd stopped trusting a year ago. So I didn't enter, didn't offer help. Just watched the countdown begin. Phase 1 loaded. The simulated virus hit the firewall. Aegis Core spun once, paused, not long, just enough for his fingers to hover, just long enough for silence to register. Then the second prompt hit. Instead of neutralizing the malware, the AI flagged the internal server as a secondary threat. Jenna's eyes darted from screen to Silas, back to the screen. He frowned, tapped twice. No response. The red banner appeared across the bottom right corner. Internal directive mismatch. Escalation triggered. 3 investors were already watching from a private stream. One leaned in. Another typed something. Silas cleared his throat. Just a calibration hiccup, he said, too fast. New machine. New rules. Behind him, the printer coughed again. Page after page of audit reports. Time-stamped. Color-coded. Everyone bearing his name. No one had touched the system since I left. No one but him. The third prompt triggered the core's ethics scanner. It paused again, then ran a different script. One I'd hard-coded under failsafe mode. Passive lockdown. Every input began slowing. Each reaction delayed by milliseconds. Nothing broke. Nothing exploded. It just shifted. Silas tapped harder, sweat rising at his temple. Jenna looked pale. Someone knocked over a glass. I stood still, didn't move, didn't flinch. The printer kept going. Access violation. Logged. Creator override missing system clarity mode engaged. Operator trust level revoked. Not one alarm rang. No red sirens. Just silence. Controlled and tactical. He turned, finally, looking for me. I met his eyes through the glass. I didn't smile, didn't wave, just raised one brow. The system wasn't crashing. It was preparing its defense. Reese, he needs you to come back. Jenna's voice was flat, clipped. No small talk, no spin. It's urgent, she added. I looked at the clock. 10:12 p.m. I hadn't spoken to anyone at Titan Tech in days. I hadn't expected to. A car arrived in 12 minutes. Black, quiet, unmarked. The kind you send when something's on fire and the PR team hasn't been briefed. I didn't ask questions, didn't dress up, just pulled on the same jacket I wore the night I built the first failsafe. The building was mostly dark, except for the top floor, where things unravel. The elevator doors opened to silence. A faint whir of printers, a buzz from the projector, and him, Silas Rourke, still in his suit, tie loosened, shirt wrinkled, hair messier than I'd ever seen. He looked up as I stepped in, and for the first time, I saw something new in his face. Panic. He didn't offer a seat, didn't say hello, just pointed at the screen behind him, where red logs scrolled like a virus no one could stop. Fix it, he snapped. His voice cracked. Whatever you did, undo it. I walked past him, took in the flickering projector light, saw my old codebase stuttering across the screen. Authority breach. Escalation triggered. Threat source, internal. Fail-safe mode, passive defensive loop active. Dozens of reports had printed and stacked across the table. Silas's name was everywhere. Access logs, modified files, backdated credentials. I didn't sabotage anything, I said calmly. Aegis is just doing what it's supposed to. He slammed a fist on the table. You taught it to attack us? No, I said, eyes locked on the screen. I taught it to identify threats. It's identifying one now. Jenna lingered in the doorway, eyes wide. She knew. She always did. Silas grabbed a report, tossed it across the table. False positives. The system's confused. It's eating itself alive. Not confused, I murmured. Awake. He paced, jaw clenched. There are 12 investors flying in tomorrow. If this demo fails, then it fails, I cut in, because the system knows it's compromised. He stared at me, hands trembling. You think this is funny? I didn't smile, didn't flinch, just pointed at the glowing message on screen. Creator, override required. You removed the one person who could authorize it. Now it doesn't trust anyone. Silas dropped into a chair, deflated. The reports kept printing. The projector hummed. Jenna took one step back, like she knew what was coming next. He thought I'd planted a virus, that I'd hacked his system, that this was revenge. He was wrong. He thought I sabotaged him. I just taught the system to tell the truth. To breakthroughs, Silas said, lifting his glass, and to the minds that make them possible. The room shimmered with applause. Crystal clinks echoed off the rooftop glass, the city skyline behind us glowing like a silent witness. I didn't raise mine, didn't sip, didn't blink. Instead, I stood, not fast, not loud, just deliberate, the way a blade leaves its sheath. I crossed the polished floor toward the silver tray of untouched flutes, champagne bubbles still rising, reflections warping across curved glass. I reached into my clutch, felt the weight of the black USB, cool, smooth, familiar, the same one I used to deploy the original build. I placed it on the tray, right between the tallest two glasses. No announcement, no accusation, just a gesture, small, fatal, laced with purpose. A few guests noticed. Their eyes followed it down like something sacred had just been dropped. Silas didn't stop. He turned toward the screen as the presentation loaded, a confident breath ready to spill rehearsed lines. Behind him, the projector lit up, bright, clean then, red. A ripple of color cut across his face, casting sharp lines in crimson. The room hushed. One by one, the opening animations stalled. The Aegis core interface flickered, then froze, then scrolled a line no one expected. Threat detected. Rourke's. A sharp inhale rippled through the room. Silas's glass hovered midair. His smile didn't fall. It evaporated. Jenna stumbled forward, tried to mute the stream. Too late. The investors leaned in. Screenshots were already being taken. The banner scrolled again. Creator authentication. Revoked unauthorized operator in command. Escalation reports active. The lights dimmed, not part of the plan. Another protocol firing off on its own. One I wrote, one I named Sentinel Black. Silas turned, wide-eyed, scanning the crowd. Then he saw me, sitting, unmoved, glass untouched, eyes locked. He tried to speak. No words came. The mic popped once, then cut out. The only sound now was paper printing behind the screen, quiet and constant. Pages spilling onto the floor like a confession no one had the courage to say out loud. No one moved to stop it. One investor raised his hand, not to ask a question, just to lower his own champagne glass, slowly. I didn't smile, didn't flinch, didn't blink. The system didn't crash. It woke up. 10 million? You're out of your mind. Silas hissed the words like they might cut me. They didn't. They never would again. We were alone in the boardroom now. The aftershock of the demo still echoed in the walls. Low murmurs in the hallway. A printer jamming in the distance. Someone wheeling away untouched champagne. He sat hunched, collar open, sweat drying in patches. I stood, not looming, just present. The way facts are present when lies stop working. He reached for a napkin, wiped his brow. The board will approve whatever makes this go away, I said. No malice, no anger, just truth. I placed the red folder on the glass table. Matte finish, no logo. Label in plain block text, Creator Override Protocol. Inside, a flash drive, and one final build. The fix, clean, stable, demo ready. He didn't touch it, just stared at the folder like it might detonate. I made a mistake, he muttered. No, I replied. You made a decision. I pulled out the chair across from him, sat slowly, leveled my voice. Full recognition as Aegis Core's creator. 50% of the patents. One board seat. 10 million in damages. His jaw locked, teeth grinding. He wanted to scream, wanted to throw something. But the investors were still in the building. and the screen had already spoken. "You're blackmailing me," he said. "No," I corrected. "I'm negotiating." I let the word sit, let it echo, let it own the room. He glanced at the folder again, then at me. "I could drag this out," he said. "Legal, arbitration, PR, spin. You could?" I nodded. "Meanwhile, the system won't run. The investors walk, and that folder finds its way to the ethics board." I leaned in. "Everything's time-stamped. Every unauthorized access, every file you renamed, every night you logged in after 2 a.m. His knuckles whitened. "You built a firewall," he whispered. "You turned it into a weapon." I shook my head. "Number, I built a mirror. It only reflects what it sees." He pushed the folder an inch across the table. Didn't open it. Didn't need to. He knew what was in it. He just didn't know what wasn't. Because inside that flash drive wasn't just a system patch. It was a line of code waiting for my approval, my presence, my name. That's what he deleted. That's what he needed back. Silas rubbed his temples, sighed through his teeth. "Fine," he said. "Draft it." "No," I said. "It's already drafted." I stood again, tucked my chair in, buttoned my jacket. "If you want the system back," I said quietly, "it has to recognize the one who built it." "Who designed the learning protocol?" The question came from the far side of the room. Investor number 6, sharp suit, sharper eyes, voice calm but precise. He already knew. He just wanted to see who'd flinch. Silas did. It was subtle. Shoulders tightening, fingers twitching around his champagne flute. He glanced at me, then back at the screen. The final demo had just ended. Flawless. 12 simulated threats. 12 neutralizations. No stalls, no red warnings, no printers screaming in protest. Just smooth, silent defense. Because the system had been restored. Because I'd restored it. The room applauded. Cautious at first, then real. Aegis Corps' logo pulsed across the wall behind Silas. Underneath it, for the first time, a new line of text appeared. Primary architect, Reese Calder. There it was. Black and white. Undeniable. Mine. Investor. 6 leaned back, watching Silas closely. "Well," he asked, "who built the mine behind the shield?" Silas hesitated. A fraction of a second too long. Then, Aegis Corps began with Reese Calder. Voice steady, face blank, hands still shaking. He stepped back. Let the room turn to me. I didn't rush, didn't beam, just stood. Walked forward. Let the weight of the moment settle. The skyline gleamed behind me. Steel and light and silence. "This system wasn't built to fight hackers," I said, "or viruses, or brute force. It was built to recognize patterns, even the ones no one wants to talk about." One investor nodded slowly. Another scribbled something on a legal pad. I saw Jenna in the back. She gave the smallest nod. "This isn't just defense," I continued. "It's accountability. The system protects what's worth protecting, even if that means protecting itself." Someone raised a glass. Others followed. This time, I joined them. No hesitation, no clenched teeth, just one sip. Quiet, exact. My name glowed beneath the logo on screen. Still there. The questions came fast after that. Tech specs, learning curves, ethical constraints. I answered each one cleanly. Nothing rehearsed, nothing embellished, just truth, finally given a microphone. And when the last question faded, and the skyline behind me glinted one final flare of sun, I exhaled, not from relief, from release. Because this time, when the room went quiet, no one looked away. No one cut me off. No one rewrote the credit line. The threat was neutralized. So was the silence. We just prevented a $340 million breach. The words hit harder than applause. The woman beside me lowered her headset, blinking back disbelief. System flagged it before the payload was even launched, she whispered. Pattern ID, internal credential masking. I nodded, already knowing. Aegis Corps had seen it coming. System integrity secured. The notification blinked once on my phone, then disappeared. Just like it always did. Quiet, clean, certain. 3 months had passed since the rooftop demo. Silas and I had reached what professionals like to call an equilibrium. He handled investor lunches. I handled everything that actually mattered. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to, because Aegis Corps spoke for itself now. It guarded the most sensitive financial infrastructures on the planet. Learned without leaking. Protected without pride. And above all, it remembered who built it. At tech conferences, they introduced me with phrases like co-founder, visionary, architect of integrity. All fine, but the truth was simpler. I didn't build the smartest system. I built the most honest one. That was always the point. It didn't just block attacks. It identified behavior. It understood intention. And it refused to obey anything that broke the rules it was sworn to uphold. Just like I did. At one event in Chicago, a young developer, maybe 22, badge still crooked, came up after my talk. Wasn't it terrifying? She asked. Going up against a whole system like that? I smiled. It wasn't a system, I said. It was a person who thought he'd become one. She laughed. Didn't get it fully. Didn't need to. I reached for my keychain later that night. Same one I've carried for years. The black USB still hangs there. Not plugged in, not even powered. Just present. Not as a threat. As a reminder. The line of code inside it doesn't change. Still requires my authentication. Still scans for breaches every time the system boots. Not because I don't trust people, but because I trust patterns more. And patterns never lie. Aegis Corps continues to evolve, faster than we expected, smarter than I dared hope. Its ethics module has already been replicated in 3 partner systems. They call it Sentinel mode. I call it what it always was, a line in the sand, the kind you don't cross, the kind that draws itself. They wanted to build something unstoppable. I built something incorruptible. And when people ask me what made it work, what gave it strength, I never mention hardware. I never mention speed. I just say this. I didn't build a system to fight threats. I built one to survive them, just like I did. Sometimes the most dangerous betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the people who smiled, nodded, and called you brilliant while quietly preparing to erase you. But here's the thing. What they try to steal isn't always what matters most, because ownership isn't just about patents or titles. It's about knowing who you are when the silence hits. It's about remembering that your work, your worth, your voice, they don't disappear just because someone else claims the credit. You don't have to burn everything down to reclaim yourself. You just have to build something no one else can control. That might be a system, or a boundary, or simply the decision not to let someone else define your narrative. What matters is that when the moment comes, the meeting, the conversation, the confrontation, you don't flinch. You don't blink. You stay still and let the truth do what it's been waiting to do. And when it's done, you walk forward, not as someone who fought for recognition, but as someone who embodied it all along. Because survival isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a single line of code, quietly running, quietly remembering, quietly refusing to be overwritten. Thank you for spending time with this story. If it stirred something in you, it's that quiet anger, that quiet strength, know this, you're not alone. So many of us have been in rooms where we were invisible, in meetings where our names were missing, in moments where the silence hurt more than the words. But still, we endured. We adapted. and in time, we rose. If you've lived through something like this, or are living it now, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Your story matters, and sharing it might be the reminder someone else needs tonight. And if these kinds of stories speak to you, stories about finding your voice, reclaiming your space, and drawing the line, feel free to like, share, or subscribe. Only if it feels right. Wherever you are, whatever you're building, keep going. The world may overlook quiet strength, but it's always the last to fall.